Hey, how you all doing, guys? Will here, back for another fight card prediction. I'm going to be breaking down UFC 175 from the Mandalay Bay Event Center in Las Vegas, Nevada, as the UFC Middleweight Champion Chris Weidman defends his title against dangerous challenger, former UFC Light Heavyweight Champion Lyoto the Dragon Machida. If you think that Chris Weidman wins this fight, give me a thumbs up. If you think Lyoto wins this fight, give me a thumbs down. We're coming off fight weekend there with two cards on it. One from Auckland, New Zealand, which was a very good card. I must admit I enjoyed it. San Antonio, which was a decent card, a little bit slow in places, but some really good fights in there. And Ricardo Lamas and Cub Swanson reaffirmed themselves as title challengers in the featherweight division. Some decent fights on there. But we're going to go on here to UFC 175. Some really great fights throughout it, and it's probably the card of the year, even though they could have probably made this card a lot better. So we're going to get into it. We start in the middleweight division. We've got Kevin Casey against Bubba Bush. Some of you may know Kevin Casey from Tough a few years back. He lost to Josh Sam in the Tough finale. He went out into the RFA, which if you haven't watched, it's the Resurrection Fighting Alliance, which I think it's Ed Soares. That's the main guy in there who looks after Lyoto and Anderson Silva. Is the bald-headed guy you've been seeing probably for the last few years around the UFC. It's his promotion, so he brings fighters up through there and they go to the UFC. He won the title a few weeks back. Kevin Casey beat Andrew Whitney by knockout in the first. A Carlson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu guy, very good in the ground, very heavy once you get down in the ground. He's got heavy hands. His gas tank's a little bit iffy if it goes into later rounds, which I think this fight might do. And he's against Bubba Bush here. This guy I've been watching for the last 3 years at Legacy Fighting Championships. And if you don't watch Legacy Fighting Championships, people go and watch it, because you're seeing the fighters coming up through into the UFC. And this guy's a good fighter wherever the fight goes. He's very good on the ground. He's good on his feet. He's very aggressive. He comes forward. He tries to initiate the clinch to get you down, to take you down on the ground. 8-2 record. I think this is going to be a very close fight in our first fight of the night, but I'm going to edge Kevin Casey just. Not a lot in this fight, I don't reckon. So I'm going to go Kevin Casey via split decision. Next up, we've got Luke Zakarich against Guilherme Vasconcelos, aka Bomba, from Tough Brazil. Luke Zakarich, you've probably seen this guy on, let me think, it was the Ultimate Fighter season, I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head. He's went out in the UFC, he's 13-2, he came into the UFC last time out and he lost to Kyle Magalhaes. He got knocked out in that fight. He's very kind of heavy on the ground. He drops forward, he tries to jab and get a clinch and take you to the ground to initiate the ground and pound. He's got quite heavy ground and pound if you've seen his fights outside the UFC. Bomba, I don't think he should be in the UFC. I think it's far too early for the guy. 3-1 record. Most of his wins are by submission. He's been working with Chael Sonnen and Mark Munoz to get his wrestling in order. But I think it's a couple of fights. He just shouldn't be in the UFC, plain and simple. He lost in I think his second fight in the house in Tough Brazil. I like Luke Zakarich here. I think he'll get a decision against Bomba. He may even get a late stoppage as well. So I'm going to go Luke Zakarich I'm going to go decision. Next up in the Bantemweight division, we've got George Roop against Rob Font. George Roop, a guy who's been in WEC, UFC for a long time, never a great fighter to watch. He leaves his chin in there, and I think this is going to be his downfall in this fight. If you haven't seen Rob Font fight, he's got power. Won his last fight against Dustin Kimura via decision. Lost to Francisco Rivera before that, where he got knocked out. He's going to use his reach and his length, and he's going to try and keep away from Font here, and maybe just use his leg kicks, use his long jab, and hopefully try and ride out decision. That's all I can really see George Roop doing in this fight. Rob Font, a guy who fights out of Massachusetts. If you haven't seen this guy fight, you can find all of his fights on YouTube. CES MMA. He fought a couple of guys recently, which I've watched over the last week or so. And the guy's got power. He's very good on the ground. He he throws some flashy stuff as well. His knockout of Tristan Johnson was spectacular. Big looping right hook and knocked him straight out. That was his last fight back in April. There was the Hassan Abdullah fight where he caught him in the Bravo choke. Chris Foster, the fight he knocked him out in there for the CES Bantamweight title. I think Rob Font can win this fight, and I think he can knock George Roop out. I'm going to go Rob Font by knockout in the second round. Moving on, we've got Chris Camozzi against Bruno Santos. Chris Camozzi, a guy that's been in the middleweight for a division for a long time, fought some tough guys, lost to some tough guys. I think he's lost his last 2 fights, if I remember right. Bruno Santos, his opponent, very much a decision fighter. I think he's won 1 fight. I think he's 13-1. I think all his wins are by decisions. A small guy for the division. He's a welterweight. I have no idea why he fights in the welterweight division, because he is small. He's not better. He's only about 5'8". Powerful, stocky guy. Tries to throw punches. He hasn't got much striking game. He's one of these guys that's going to lay and pray. And he tried to do that against Krzysztof Jotko last time in Brazil, and it failed, and he lost his first fight in UFC. But Chris Camozzi is too good a striker, and too tough for Bruno Santos. So I'm going to go Chris Camozzi by knockout in the second. Next up in the welterweight division, we've got Kenny Robertson against Ildemir Alcantara. Kenny Robertson, good wrestler. Striking, he does enough to kind of initiate the takedowns, get into the clinch. He's got some skills on the ground. He goes for submissions, he looks for submissions, and he's quite... he tries different things, which is always nice to see. I think he won against Thiago Perpetuo last time out via submission. And before that he lost to Sean Pearson via majority decision at UFC 161, which I thought was bullshit. Sorry, not bullshit. I thought he got taken out. Sean Pearson was just a better fighter that night. That's what I'm trying to say, basically. Ildemir Alcantara, he's a tough guy. Hard to kind of finish. He's always going to be there around the fight. He beat Albert Tumanov last time out in February. Lost to Igor Araujo beforehand. Guy's got decent skills on the ground. Striking's okay. This is going to be a close fight, I reckon. I like Kenny Robertson just for the fact it's in the States and it's the first time that Alcantara's fought in the States. I always find that a wee bit of defining factor, aka like Brago Neto last week against Clint Hester. I like Kenny Robertson. I think he may catch a late submission in this fight, and I'm going to go third round submission for Kenny Robertson. And the main event on the Fox Sports 1 card is a fight that should be on the main card. Stupid UFC, I don't know what you're playing at by putting this on there. Maybe get the viewers in before the pay-per-view, I can see that, but with a couple of fights that are on the main card, this should be on the pay-per-view card. We've got Urijah Faber, one of the stalwarts of smaller weight classes for years, one of my favourite fighters, against Alex Leroy Caceres, in a fight which is pretty exciting when you think about it, but when you kind of break it down, Urijah Faber all day long. I don't even think I'm going to break this down too much. I'm going to go Urijah Faber by a choke. I think he's going to submit Bruce Leroy fairly early on. Caceres has been a nice run of wins, to be fair to him, but nah, Urijah Faber by submission here. Moving on to the pay-per-view card, a fight I'm actually kind of looking forward to. Marcus Brimage against Russell Doan. Brimage, this is him dropping down from the featherweight division after he got his ass beat by the notorious Conor McGregor. And he's coming down to the bantamweight division against Russell Doan, who's having his second fight in the UFC here, after beating Leandro Issa in Singapore back in January. Brimage, stocky guy. His favourite fighter was Rampage Jackson. You see a lot of that in him. He doesn't like to go to the ground. He likes to just sit there and throw bombs, and he's got a little bit of wrestling with him, but he likes to stand and bang, and his power will definitely come down from 145 to 135 here. Russell Doan is a kind of a little bit, I don't want to say journeyman, but I am going to say it, journeyman. He's kind of fought all over the place, and the people that he's lost to aren't bad fighters. Michinori Tanaka, who beat Delorme at 174, was one of the fighters he's lost to. He's a decent fighter, so he is. And he won via submission. He's very good technically when he goes to the ground. He's striking, he's got a little bit of work there. He likes to throw the jab, come in with a low kick to get to the to get a double leg to take you down, I've noticed in the fights that I've watched. And he's very good in the ground. He's fit to say, he looks for things, and he's quite technical in the ground, and he bides his time and he catches you like he did with Issa in January. Close fight here, but I am siding. I'm going to go Marcus Brimage just. I think by decision. Next up, we've got Uriah Hall against Thiago Santos. Thiago Santos is coming off a win over Ronnie Marks, I think it was, when he hit him with a vicious body kick. You heard it, and Marks just basically ran away like a fucking bitch, and cowered up, and he got taken out by Thiago Santos. He's got some dangerous strikes, as has Uriah Hall. Uriah Hall, we all seen what he was like on Tough, but he's come into the UFC from Tough, and he's like he's lost his balls pretty much, and he doesn't know what to do. Beat Chris Weidman. I think this is his last fight. He should win this fight, but you just don't know which Uriah Hall's going to turn up. If the Uriah Hall from Tough turns up, he blasts his full out in probably the first round. If we've seen Uriah Hall in his previous fights in UFC, who fucking knows how this fight's going to go. So I'm going to go... I think I'm going to go Uriah Hall. I think he's going to knock out Thiago Santos. I think we'll see the Tough Uriah Hall, but who knows. Next up, we've got the returning Stefan Struve against Matt Mitrione. This is great news if you're a European kind of fight fan. Stefan Struve had some really tough times. He lost his dad. He had some heart problems, which might have stopped him fighting altogether. He's a guy who's been in the UFC. I think he's probably fought over 15 times in the UFC. He's headlined a few cards over here in Europe. Awesome when he goes to the ground. His length, he can get submissions from anywhere because of the length of his legs and his arms, and he can grab and take you down and get you down there. Matt Mitrione, a guy with knockout power, lots of it. Sometimes he fights stupidly like he did against Brendan Schaub, and he got taken to the ground, he got submitted. And I can see this happening in this fight here. I like Stefan Struve to get the win here. I'm just hoping, because I think he deserves it after the probably 18 months he's had. So I'm going to go Stefan Struve via submission in the second. And on the two main fights of the night, two fights I'm really looking forward to seeing. We have Ronda Rousey defending her UFC Women's Bantamweight Championship against Alexis Davis. On paper, probably her toughest challenge. Ronda Rousey, I don't know what I can really say. She's a judoka. She's just awesome. We saw last time at 170 against Sara McMann, she showed her stand-up. I think that Sara McMann focused so much on her ground game, her BJJ game, that she totally forgot that Rousey's kind of striking is coming on leaps and bounds. You can see it. And she got caught with a knee in the ribs, and it took her out in the first round. Be interesting to see if this fight goes longer into the fight, because against Miesha Tate, she struggled once it kind of got into the second. She did get the finish in the third, but she looked very gassy. Alexis Davis, just very good everywhere. She's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. She's a Japanese Jiu-Jitsu black belt. She can maybe put up a fight on the ground against Ronda Rousey once it gets there. Her striking has came along the last few fights with her leg kicks. She hurt, was it Liz Carmouche? I think she hurt her with there. She beat Liz Carmouche, Rosie Sexton. And her last fight, she beat Jessica Ai. I would like to think this is a close fight, but I think Ronda Rousey is just a special fighter. Can't say enough more good things about her. And I fully expect her to win this fight, but I think she's going to win it by knockout. I think she's going to maybe knock out Alexis Davis second round, maybe third. I think Davis has got enough to kind of be savvy on the ground with her. So I'm going to go Ronda Rousey, maybe via ground and pound. I'm going to go second round, Ronda Rousey. And the main event, a very, very, very good fight. Chris Weidman against Lyoto Machida. I managed to meet Lyoto in Manchester last year. I was one of the lucky two people that managed to get a picture with him. He just wasn't for sticking around and taking pictures whatsoever, but was really, really nice. And he said thank you for even asking, even though lots of other people were as well. Beat Mark Munoz via a head kick. Munoz just looked scared in there, and then had a fantastic performance against Gegard Munoz back in February. We all know what Machida's good, and he's good against wrestlers as well. This is something you've got to look out for in this match against Weidman. Weidman's predominantly a wrestler, very, very good, with great jiu-jitsu skills as well, but he always seems to do very well against wrestlers, does Machida. And the closer this event gets, the more I'm signed towards Lyoto Machida. I don't know why, because I've I've been a great admirer of Machida. I've never been his biggest fan, like a fanboy of Lyoto Machida. I love his style, I love the way he fights, but I've just never been his biggest fan. But I could watch him fight all day as well. This is a Chris Weidman. He knocked out the great Anderson Silva, beat him in the rematch for that leg kick that snapped Silva's leg. Great when it goes to the ground. Got tough wrestling. But I can just see Machida coming into this fight the more the fight goes. I think Chris Weidman should really look at the John Jones fight here to see where Machida went wrong, and Jones caught him with a big shot and then took him out with submission. I think that needs to be the game plan here for Chris Weidman against Lyoto Machida. As I say, I've been siding more towards Machida, but I'm going to go with my head, and I'm going to go Chris Weidman via decision. Yeah, I'm going to go Chris Weidman via unanimous decision. So that's my fight picks. I'll tell you what, I'll give my fight picks for the day after the Ultimate Fighter finale. Nearly forgot about that there. We've got Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn. I'll just quickly run through that. On the card, we've got Robert Drysdale against Keith Barish. Robert Drysdale, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy who's been around the UFC for a long time, finally getting a fight in there. I like him to beat Barish here. I think he'll do it via submission in the first. We've got Sara Moraes against Alexis Dufresne. Dufresne is very, very aggressive. Likes to come forward, and Moraes is very good in the ground, so it's going to be a close fight, but I think Moraes is just going to take it. We've got Adriano Martins against Juan Manuel Puig. Martins, I reckon, will win via submission. We've got Jumbiki Tusharon against Leandro Issa. I like Issa in this fight via decision. Kevin Lee against Jesse Ronson. I like Kevin Lee in the fight via late knockout in the second, and I'm going to go for there. Next up's a really great fight, Justin Scoggins against Dustin Ortiz. Dustin Ortiz got a bit of a decision against Ray Borg last time out, who looked fantastic at the weekend. This is going to be a close fight. I'm a very, very big fan of Justin Scoggins from what I've seen of him in the UFC and outside the UFC, so I'm going to go Justin Scoggins via decision. Derek Lewis against Guto Asante. Lewis likes to knock out people. Asante's more a submission guy. He fights out the Blackzilians. Close fight. I think I'm going to go Lewis knockout in the first, and then we've got Frankie Edgar against BJ Penn. I want to see BJ Penn. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go BJ Penn just because BJ Penn's the man. Via decision. But then we'll have a couple of the Ultimate Fighter finale fights in there as well. So that's my picks for the card. I'll be back. I may make one for Cerrone versus Miller from Atlantic City, but there's probably a better chance of me making one for UFC Dublin, which is going to be the card of the year. Guarantee you, wait till you hear the crowd in that place. So I'll be back there. I'll probably do both, and I'll be back in a few weeks. Okay. So come follow me on Twitter, BigBulba7MMA. Like and share this video, and I will see you all soon. Peace.